All right. Hey, guys. All right. So, welcome to what is hopefully going to be a monthly recurring Ask Me Anything live stream. What's up, Arthur? Our first member saying hello. Thanks for joining. All right, guys. So, this is a live stream AMA, so you guys can ask me any questions. I actually want to start with a few questions that we received from our members and subscribers recently. And in the meantime, you guys can keep asking your questions in the live chat. And my good friend Eddie here is going to be helping us moderate that. How's the audio sounding? Good? Sweet. All right, so starting off with the member questions. Esme Zamora asks, I'm a career changer, graduated in 2012 with a BA in criminology and psychology. All of my prior research experience was in the social sciences and was from 2011 to 2014. Is it even worth mentioning? I work full-time and I'm taking my prereqs part-time, so I won't be ready to apply until the 2025 cycle. By then, all of my research and a large part of my extracurricular and service activities would be 10 plus years old. The only current activities would be shadowing, volunteering at a hospital, and my job. Law enforcement officer. So usually when you're applying, you want to keep your experiences relatively recent. And the main exception to that is actually research. So if you have publications, abstracts, presentations, etc., include them, regardless of from what field they are or what time period. When it comes to your activities, things like volunteering, etc., that's going to depend on your situation. So working full-time, taking prereqs part-time, 2025. I think this is fine to include your activities like, shadowing, volunteering, those are all current. Yeah, definitely do that. Yeah, man, I would say that based on this comment that I'm seeing, definitely include everything, including your research and your extracurriculars. Cool. Thanks for your question, Esme. Next is from Arthur Sheffer. What have you involved or changed your mind about since making your video, if I could redo my 20s? By the way, the reason that these guys get priority on their questions is because they became channel members. So if you guys want your questions with priority too, then there's that join button below this video. So Arthur asks, what have I changed since if I could redo my 20s? Also, what new advice would I give to 20-year-olds when it comes to making new relationships, networking, and business? Damn, good question. If I could redo my 20s, well, now I'm 31. I would start drinking tea sooner because tea's hella good. I'm not sure what I included in that first video. Arthur says audio and video are great. Awesome. Thank you, Arthur. Redoing my 20s. I'm not sure what I put in that first video, but what I'll say comes up right now for me is I think leaning into acceptance a little bit sooner would have reduced a lot of stress and anxiety. I have leaned into acceptance for a variety of reasons since last November, more so than usual. I think I've already explored the whole world of like just accepting things as they are, not trying to resist and change things that are out of your control, which doesn't mean giving up on trying to change and improve and whatever, but coming at things through a lens of like, hey, this is just how they are. And from this lens, from this position of acceptance, then I'm going to try to change more intentionally rather than like resisting and fighting what is. So that's been a very big shift for me since in some other areas of my life since like last November. And I've been a lot happier as a result. So that one's a pretty big one. And second question from Arthur, who is again a member, so he gets priority, is you commented on Jubbal and Cars, which is my new YouTube channel, Jubbal and Cars, where I review cars, which are one of my greatest obsessions. That it is way more fun to have a, quote, cheaper car that you use and abuse it 100% rather than having a, quote, super expensive car that you're only going to use 60 to 70% of its potential, especially if you don't have the skills to use it to the maximum. And I agree. Do you have more areas in life in which you believe this also applies? Any material possession, if it is too expensive for any given person. So like if Jeff Bezos was driving a Porsche GT3, he wouldn't really worry about the cost because the relative cost for him is so infinitely small. Whereas for someone like me, I would be like, oh my God, I need to baby this thing. It's like my prized possession. It's worth so much money. It's like such a large percentage of my net worth, etc. So what I would say here is like, there is a lot of liberation with not letting things own you. And part of that liberation is when you're not buying things beyond your means. Like if you're trying to flex on people and be like, yo, I'm like so successful, look at this expensive car, then oftentimes that car is going to bring you a lot of anxiety, like making the payments, does it get damaged, etc. I've had my current car for 9 years, and when I first got it as a medical student, I like babied it. I took such good care of it. I was so worried about it. And then more recently, I'm like, you know what? It's a cheap, old, used car, and it's not a big deal. I'm actually buying the new one, the new GR86. So that's what I'd say there. So, by the way, guys, I'm also going to be addressing the... we have some controversial videos on gender surgery on both So You Want to Be and Day in the Life of a Gender Surgeon. We're going to wait until about 15 minutes in. So right now we're at 9 minutes. So in about 6-ish minutes, we're going to address some of the thoughts I have there. Cool. So viewer questions. Let's see. What laptop do you have? This one right here is a MacBook Pro 2021, 14-inch. I used to have the larger 16-inch, and because I travel a lot, and I don't really edit my videos anymore. I have an awesome editor. I have an awesome team that does a lot of things for me. I don't need as powerful of a computer. And this one is still actually plenty powerful if I ever do want to edit my videos, but I rarely ever edit anything these days. Yeah, if you're starting med school soon at a US program, first of all, congrats, Vumsy. That is awesome. And what I would say is you don't need anything fancy. Like the base MacBook Air, which I think is around $1,000, is gonna be more than enough. Or if you do Windows, I don't really know that much about Windows PCs these days because I haven't been in the Windows game for several years, so I'm not updated there. Next up from Ben Chill. How difficult would it be to get a Cali residency as an out-of-state med student? Backstory, I'm from Cali and I got into Cali MD schools, but my favorite school was in Florida, so that's where I will be going. Getting into a California residency out of state, it's going to depend partially on the residency program that you're going to in terms of, or the specialty, I should say. So larger specialties are going to be easier. Smaller specialties that have fewer programs will be harder. But in terms of location, like preference, because they see that you're from California, they know there's a high chance that you want to come back. Whereas when you put yourself in the AdCom seats, if they're like, this guy was born and raised in Florida, which you're not, right? But if you were born and raised in Florida and then, you know, you're applying to California, they're like, oh, this guy, his whole life is there. But if you were in California, then you go to Florida and then you're coming back, then it's probably not going to be a big deal. Probably not going to be an issue. All right. We got some more questions. Thoughts on pursuing consulting and skipping residency after med school? I think that's a very common thing that a lot of people do. A lot of people will go straight to consulting right after med school. A lot of people will also start residency and then quit at some point during residency to then do consulting. So, I mean, pros and cons, I think, I've heard different things. Some have said that the hours are not nearly as abusive as residency. Those are usually people from surgical residencies. I've also heard people that the hours are really challenging, but when I think about it, those are people who are not in surgical residencies. So maybe the hours are somewhere in the middle is what I would guess. I don't really know that much about it. And then I think in terms of compensation, you are making less compared to being in an attending position, but you're making it immediately versus having to do, your 3 to 7 years of residency before you start making the 6 figures. All right. I'm going to go back to some of the other questions I asked on Instagram and on the YouTube pinned comment. Eddie, is that cool? All right. Let's see. Best piece of medical school interview advice: practice, practice, practice. That's going to help you a lot. Personal questions. Which of your business ventures are you the most excited about? Jubbal and cars, for sure, because I'm so obsessed with cars, and I'm finally working on some projects related to cars, which I wanted to do since 2016. I scripted out my How to Drive Stick Shift series, a 3-part series, which is now on Jubbal and Cars, the YouTube channel. I scripted it out back in 2016. I only recorded it earlier this year because I kept telling myself, I'll do it when I have time. I'll do it when I have time. I was never going to make time, or I was never going to have time. I would have to make time, right? So I kind of I dived in, and I'm making the time. I'm approaching it through a lens of how can I minimize friction. So I do POV, like a GoPro on my forehead, similar to the Topher and Tedward, the 2 YouTubers who I stole that idea from, really. So credit to them for creating that POV format with car reviews. And that way it's like, it's less work of editing and getting different camera shots and all that stuff. So yeah, excited about that. How to be a workaholic. How not to be a workaholic, how to be a workaholic. If you want to be a workaholic, then have all of your identity caught up in the amount of work you produce and what you, like, have your self-worth be tied to your professional, academic accomplishments, etc., which is not healthy. So don't do that. All right, let's do a few more questions and then we'll dive into the spicy, juicy gender surgery controversy. All right. Madeline, who is a member. I want to be a doctor, but I'm afraid to see dead people. What should I do? So the first thing that comes up is anatomy. I'm guessing you mean like with anatomy because you have to, every med student does anatomy, works with cadavers. Madeline, if you have anything else you want to add, then let me know in the comments, but I'm going to assume part of it is related to cadavers. I will say that a lot of people have hangups with anatomy for good reason. It's like a very different experience. And what I will say is that every med student gets through it. We did have a couple people who fainted out of our 125. I think it was only like 2 or 3. But everyone's going to get through it. It's like, it's a learning experience, and there are ways that they help you approach it so that it is less overwhelming. And then if you didn't mean anatomy, but you meant more like while you're practicing as a clinician, there are some specialties that are going to have more depth than others. So you can select for that. But I would also invite you to just, like, it's uncomfortable. It's not a pleasant thing. Like, it's part of the human experience, unfortunately. Like, we all are going to die someday. But if you approach it through the lens of, hey, this is uncomfortable and I want to learn about the world and myself and just like grow as a person, you're going to come out way ahead compared to just being like, hey, I want to avoid this at all costs. So, and thank you again, Madeline, for being a member of this channel. Really appreciate that. Arthur using the emojis. Nice. Okay, so I'm going to answer more of your guys' questions, but real quick, I want to dive into a little bit about the gender surgery video. So, oh my God, these were 2 extremely controversial videos. Both So You Want to Be a Gender Surgeon as well as A Day in the Life of a Gender Surgeon, which is on this channel, and then So You Want to Be a Gender Surgeon is on the Medical Insider channel. So one thing I want to say here, actually I have a lot of things I want to say here, is I think a lot of people already have decided their view on something, and if something is contradictory to that view, they almost view it as an attack on themselves because they identify with that belief, with that viewpoint. And what I urge a lot of those people to consider, those who were offended or like, hey, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this, is it's fine to have strong opinions, but I remember hearing this quote, like, strong opinions loosely held. be willing to consider other perspectives, right? So if there's any time where you can look at your set of beliefs and you say, hey, I am Democrat, I am Republican, I am, like, if your beliefs fall under an ism or an identity, then you want to be very careful, because you're probably not choosing those beliefs. You are just adopting the beliefs of a group of people, and you've outsourced the decision-making process, the critical thinking process. And you're saying that, hey, because I am a Democrat or a Republican or whatever, that, or, insert religion, that I believe these things, and anytime someone contradicts these beliefs, I'm going to take it as a personal attack, and I'm going to attack them back and say, like, you're wrong, how dare you? So if you're able to have, one thing that I'm actually very proud of, and I think this is something that we should all strive to do, is no one should be able to put you in a box. If you have beliefs about, like, there are some things I believe that are aligned with Democrats. There are some things I believe that are aligned with Republicans. There's some things I believe that are aligned with moderates. Like, you can't put me in a box, because for each issue, I try to learn whatever I can about it, and then make my own best, well-informed decision. So, gender surgery as an example, one thing that I was opposed to, again, strong opinions loosely held, was that doing this surgery or giving hormones to minors is, like, totally not okay. And it was only after working with Dr. John Brocious, who is the gender surgeon from both of these videos, that when I heard his take, I realized, okay, wow, I don't think it's a black and white thing. Now I understand that it is a gray area thing. It's a very complex, nuanced issue that, obviously they're approaching it with a lot of psychiatric treatment first, and, like, there's a lot of things to make sure that you are approaching it in a careful way, because they understand the risks involved with this, right? Like, if someone changes their mind in the future about this, this is devastating stuff, right? So when I came through it, when I understood his perspective and his reasoning, I realized that this is a gray area thing, and anyone who's speaking about it in black or white and says it's always good or it's always bad, I can't consider their opinion that seriously, because I don't think that they're thinking objectively. I think they're thinking from a position of identity and ego. So keep that in mind. So kind of bringing it back now to the whole, like, do your ideas fit into a box? If you identify one way politically versus another, you probably have a basket of beliefs. So, like, it's kind of all or nothing when people want to support, transgender individuals, and it doesn't have to be that way. Like, for me, as an example, that's my tea. For me, as an example, there's been a lot of news articles and attention to transgender athletes. Like, should a transgender woman be able to compete with cisgender females? And I think if you look at the biology, there's a huge advantage to being XY chromosome, right? And then competing with XX, like in terms of muscle mass strength as a percentage of body mass, et cetera. So that's something that I think is, I don't want to speak in absolutes here, but, like, you can find the gray areas, right? But just because I think that gender surgery should be, given more visibility and people should understand it and see, yada yada, doesn't mean that I support necessarily everything that a group of individuals wants to push. And I think when you can approach complex topics and controversial topics through that lens, you're going to make a lot more decisions that are aligned with your true beliefs rather than just adopting other beliefs. Anyways, that is enough about that, unless you guys have anything else you want me to address. Anything else I need to add there? Sir Moderator, we good? All right. Cool. Back to your questions. What is my take on athletic trainers? I have a coach. I have a personal trainer. I've been working with him for over 2 years remotely, and it's been a net positive experience. I think we often believe that our issue is knowledge, that, if I learned more, then I would achieve X, Y, or Z. And there's this one guest on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and he's like, I'm forgetting who it was. Maybe it was, I'm forgetting his name. The guy who wrote, Derek Sivers. I think it might have been Derek Sivers. I'm not sure though. If knowledge was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six packs. And I was like, dude, that is such a good quote, because knowledge often isn't the issue, especially in this day and age with the internet and such. So I remember being, as I can get, getting very into and obsessively, just like researching various things. I got really into weight training and strength training and powerlifting and then bodybuilding and all these different things. And yet I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, and I was getting injured more often. And I read these books and those books and watched all these YouTube videos, and this is for years. And it wasn't until working with my coach that it's like, okay, this person has a more objective perspective of me because they're not me. So I'm always going to be biased on my own training, my own effort, on my own things. But he is training hundreds and hundreds of people, or has experience with hundreds and hundreds of people. So now he can look at me and say, hey, how do I compare to his other clients, right? And as a result, I have been called out on things that I wasn't aware of. Like, oh, my form here, like I thought I was going deep enough on squats. No, you're like not quite at parallel. Okay, cool. Or things like diet, or things like my sleep. Like, oh, I'm sleeping 7 hours. Well, yeah, but if you look at your HRV trending this way, it's like, yeah, that's a good point. And trying to like, things that I might be biased about, trying to brush off and be like, hey, it's not a big deal. He would be able to bring to my attention and say, well, objectively, do you believe this is true? I'm like, yeah, okay, you're right. And like, it's like my bias getting involved and then coloring the whole perception. So I think there's a lot of value there if you find a good trainer. Have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome? I guess with public speaking, maybe. I hated public speaking. I was so terrified of public speaking, which is ironic, right? But I guess what I did is, so to overcome that fear of public speaking, I did like exposure therapy essentially. So I joined Toastmasters. I started doing speeches there. I was just doing like more repetition exposure to the thing that I feared, which was public speaking. I upped the ante, right? So part of that was forced on me because especially when you start doing research and you need to present that research at conferences, it's really scary, not only because you're presenting it in front of, I don't know, 100 people or depending on the size of the conference, but you're a med student and you're presenting it to attendings that know way more about plastic surgery than you, right? So you're like, oh my God, they're gonna tear me a new one. But I didn't just go from being afraid of public speaking to then doing that. I did a lot of speaking between those two things. And each time I was kind of upping the ante, upping the pressure or the like the stakes, if you will. So I still remember the moment in which things like clicked was actually when I was pitching Blue Link, which was my first company essentially. And we were pitching it to Janet Napolitano, the president of the UC system. And we were trying to get funding. And it was like me and my team, and then the only other people in the room were like the deans of the various colleges at UCSD. So you had like the engineering, the medical, the whatever. And we were the organization that was like bridging it all together. So the stakes were really high. But because this was something that I cared so deeply about, it wasn't just a school project that I had to do. I was able to like channel that passion, and it was fun. It was great. And I guess after that, any feelings of imposter syndrome really kind of vanished. Am I still plant-based? Vegetarian since birth, vegan last 7, finally your med channel is brilliant. Hey man, Chris, thanks for watching. Appreciate the kind words. I am no longer plant-based. I was plant-based for around, I think 4.5 years, mostly during medical school. And I've just been experimenting a lot with my diet, trying to figure out what is going to manage my IBD in the best way possible and just make me feel good. And I found that minimizing dairy, eating fewer processed foods, having primarily lean meats like chicken, like poultry, chicken, turkey, and seafood has just worked well for me. So I avoid spicy, deep fried. I don't 100% eliminate, but I minimize red meat and unhealthy processed foods. Like my breakfast every morning is vegetables cooked on the stove with some egg whites and blueberries, So that's been working well for me. And I think it's kind of different for everyone. So that works for me, may not work for you. Yeah, there's some principles. I think like whole unprocessed foods are good. That's a good principle. But in terms of like vegan versus keto versus this, like I don't think that we can say for certain what's best. All right. Keep the questions coming. I'm gonna pour some more tea. And for those who are curious, we're doing 2014 aged white tea cake. So Daniel is asking for the tea, and I realize that there's a little bit more detail involved. We got 2014 Chen Nian Xiao Mei aged white tea cake of fooding. All right. The rocket surgeon. Dude, I am not a rocket surgeon. I am but a peasant compared to a rocket surgeon. Still enjoying living in Vegas. Yeah, Vegas is great. Vegas is a good spot. It's not, no city is perfect, right? There are things I like and dislike about Vegas, but ultimately it has a lot more things that I like than don't like. I'll be staying here for a good while. I'm not leaving anytime soon. But I will be visiting San Diego probably more often because I do really love San Diego. And I've been going there a couple times per year. Parker Kim asks, do you think the glory days of medicine are over, or do you believe medicine as a profession, work-life balance, is improving? I think the glory days, when you're talking about a few decades ago, that is over, and a large part of that is because of the changes with just healthcare on a national level, things with insurance, things with government policy, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that it's still a great profession, that being said. So was it perhaps better in certain ways back then? Sure. But I think it's still a very strong profession. The issue that I talk about a lot is that there is a mismatch between perception and reality. And that's one of the things that I try to show on both this and the Medical Insider channel, is like to give it to you guys straight, give it to you guys real, because it's a challenging profession. And if you're jumping into it for the wrong reasons and you don't really know what you're getting into, then you're not going to have a good time. Simple as that. But for a lot of people, and a lot of my friends and colleagues from medical school, they're happy with medicine. They're glad they did it. And a lot of them say that it's different than they expected. But yeah, I think that you can still be very happy as a physician, for sure. Is the quality of an Ivy League medical education better than, meaning open doors, a good state school? There are some programs that are going to always care about your pedigree, is what they call it, right? What schools did you train at? So if you want to ultimately match at a residency program that is Ivy League and really cares about your pedigree, then it helps to be at a top-ranked institution. But some of those institutions that you listed, I can't see your comment anymore, but things like UCLA, like it's a public school, but it's not technically Ivy League, but it's like a fantastic program. Same with UMich, et cetera. So for those ones, like I don't think that going between UCLA versus a traditional Ivy League is going to make as big of a difference, or any difference for a lot of specialties and for a lot of programs. But for like, a less prestigious state school going to an Ivy League, that I have seen that be a problem actually at some of these programs, especially smaller specialties. And yeah, sometimes they do care about that. What's your favorite food? My favorite cuisine is, I'd say Japanese. Japanese cuisine is just so fire. It used to be Thai, but now because my trainer tells me I got to reduce my carbs, I don't do Thai that often anymore. Would you ever buy a Tesla? Oh, car questions. I like me some car questions. I do not think I would ever buy a Tesla, because there's nothing wrong with Teslas. I hear that there's a lot of issues with build quality, but other than that, I love cars and driving because of the passion behind the driving experience, the sounds, the character of the engine, the way that it rotates, it handles. Like I love dancing with the car at the limit. That's why I love going to the racetrack. But a lot of cars like Tesla, like most cars that aren't sports cars, including Teslas, going fast in a straight line, I do not care. Like my car is really slow in a straight line, but I will have more fun in that car than just about any other car, because it's about taking turns at speed. It's about rotating. It's about getting a little bit of a drift going, oversteer. That is like dancing with the car. It's so communicative. The steering is telling me exactly what it's doing. It's light. It's tossable. But Teslas, like I've driven a Model 3 Performance. I've driven a Model S, Model X, not a Model Y yet. But they're more appliances, right? They're not about driving enjoyment and engagement. Cool, you can go really fast in a straight line. That's just not that exciting to me. Arthur, thank you for being a member, my friend. And he asks, what are you thinking about Charles Leclerc's performance? So for those who don't know, Charles Leclerc is a Formula One driver for Ferrari. And dude, I think the unfortunate thing is that Ferrari, the reliability of the engine is the big issue. So they started off really strong this season, but now things are kind of going downhill. But then Carlos Sainz just got second place at the Canadian Grand Prix. So we'll see. We'll see if Ferrari can pick things back up. But I love Charles Leclerc. I'm really hoping that he wins the WDC, but we'll see. What's your ethnicity? Settling a bet with a friend. Sean, I am Antarctican. Jeffy Who, what is your advice for meeting new people in a new city? Mid-20s struggling since everyone else at work seems married with kids. Oh my God, you think that everyone's married with kids in your 20s? Wait until your 30s, my friend. So essentially what it comes down to is do things that you enjoy, do activities that you enjoy, and you will find like-minded people. Simple as that. So for me, that includes the car meets on weekend mornings, like Cars and Coffee and similar, and doing track days and doing cycling. There's a cycling group I'm a part of. There are various track day organizations and Car and Coffee meets that I attend. And I've met a lot of people in Vegas through that, because when you're an adult and you're not forced to go to school every day, it's a lot harder to just naturally make friends. So you need to go out of your way to do those activities to then meet people. So you got to be a little bit more intentional with what kind of hobbies you want to pursue and what kind of people you're going to meet there. So John Wood asks, what is your favorite car? It's a hard question. I have on my Jubbal and Cars channel, underneath every video, we have a Jubbal and Cars driving index. That's a spreadsheet where I've ranked every car that I've driven for the channel, at least, not every car that I've ever driven in my life, in terms of various aspects of like performance, driving, and enjoyment. So the one that really impressed me a lot recently was I think it was a 2007 or 2009 Porsche 911 GT3, which was a fantastic experience. I also really like the Porsche 981 Cayman GT4, as well as the 718 Cayman GT4. I do like Porsches a lot. I think they're understated. They're very good at delivering reliable, precise performance and driving enjoyment. So at some point I will probably buy a Porsche, but I am currently waiting for my Toyota GR86 to arrive. Sean Anderson asks, who is your favorite person in the whole world and why is it me? Guys, do you think I should tell him the truth? No? He's not ready? Okay. Next question is, are some research jobs or publications, Sean, I love that you're here in this live stream. Thanks for joining us, man. Are some research jobs or publications viewed as less important than others when applying to medical school or residency? For example, having publications in cardiology versus plant research. So when you're applying to residency, then yeah, you want to be having more research in the specialty that you're applying to. So if I had a lot of pediatrics research and I was going into, well, actually pediatrics is pretty broad. If I had a lot of internal medicine research and I was going into plastics or neurosurgery, it wouldn't be as ideal versus having research in plastics and neurosurgery. However, when you're applying to medical school, it doesn't really matter. Like, do research in whatever you want to do. It's more just about the scientific process. And also for residency, it depends on your specialty. For things that are super competitive, plastic surgery, dermatology, tier 1, yeah, you're going to need plastics and derm research. Tier 2, neurosurgery, orthopedics, and ENT, same thing. But the lower tier, like the further down you go on the tier list, the less mission critical it is. And I know I know a guy that got into internal medicine at UCSF, zero research. So it's not absolutely necessary, but it definitely helps a lot, especially with step 1 going pass fail. Let me get some more tea. Guys, I'm so glad that you all joined us because I'm having a great time. And for those who want to do this more often, I'm going to be doing a members only live stream. So right now, I'm drinking tea. You know, it's nice, it's wholesome, it's a good time. But for the members only live stream, I'll be drinking some scotch. I'll be getting a little bit uninhibited with you all and having a good time. So if you guys want to join that, then please do consider joining and becoming a member. All right, member Madeline806 asks, was it worth all the time and effort to become a doctor? This is a good question. I will say for me personally, I could not do my businesses, well, namely Med School Insiders, but even I guess with Memm, maybe not with Memm. With Med School Insiders, I couldn't really do it if I didn't go through the process myself. I wouldn't be nearly as effective. I wouldn't really know what I'm talking about, right? Like, you do have some companies that try to do similar things where the founder is not an MD, they're maybe a PhD and they mislead people, or they are they're just like not, you know, a doctor at all. And I think it definitely compromises the quality of advice that you can give. So one thing, so Med School Insiders also took off like none other. We went from 0 to 100K in 5 months, 0 to 200K in 11 months. And that was with zero social media beyond YouTube. No Instagram, no nothing, no newsletter, no web, like it was just YouTube videos that just like took off. And I think a big part of that was because, I was showing results I had and teaching people how, like when you go on YouTube, there's a lot of people saying a lot of things. Who do you trust? And part of that is looking for signs of authority. So like one sign of authority that I would use, like, hey guys, here's my MCAT score, here's my step scores or whatever, here are my results, and these are the systems that helped me get there. And then that's like part of it. That's what gets the eyeballs, but then obviously that's not enough. You need to also provide value with the content itself. But yeah, I think for me to do my current businesses, it was totally worth it. I loved med school. Those 4 years for me were more fun than college. Part of that is because college was a very challenging time for me for personal reasons, and for primarily health reasons, I should say. So yeah, med school was great, and you know, I didn't go that deep into residency. So for me, it was totally worth it. And for a lot of my colleagues, I think a lot of them feel the same, that it's worth it. It's not exactly what they expected, but it was worth it. And they're glad they did it, and they're happy where they're at now. So, because a lot of them are attending physicians now. Cool, next question. Are you gonna put a wide body or an exhaust? I'm not about the wide body game personally. Exhaust, I already have an exhaust on my FRS, which is the CSG Touring 8.6. It's a very, very quiet exhaust. It does not exceed the Laguna Seca 90 decibel sound limit. So I might use just that same exhaust. I'm pretty sure it's gonna work on the new car as well. All right. Is it true you would have done CS if not medicine? Oh, totally. I love computer science, and I did 2 years of Java in high school. Really enjoyed it. My brother, who was 2 years ahead of me in school, I remember he was like trying to convince me to become a computer programmer, and I was considering it at the beginning of college before I got sick with IBD, because like I think I love the way that you have to think to solve these problems. And I would go home after high school and like create my own little bots to play these games and like figure out how to like read a screen, and it was just fun. It was fun, and my brother thought that I would be based on those experiences, he's like, dude, you should do this. You have a knack for this. But after I got IBD, I was like, I don't know. I feel more of a strong calling for medicine. All right. Did you expect that much controversy on the gender surgery video? Oh my God, no. I did not expect anywhere near that level of controversy. I think there've been a lot of videos that have surprised me. The first time I make them, like anytime I talk about scope creep, independent practice of mid-levels, then it's always controversial. And the first time I made it, like I knew it was gonna be controversial. I guess that one didn't surprise me. The MD versus DO videos I've made totally have surprised me, because everything in those videos is like 100% factually accurate. And I've had DO colleagues and friends who like watch it with the critical eye to make sure also like everything I'm saying is accurate and true. But I was shocked by how many people were offended. I'm like, dude, these are just facts. There's like no judgment here. This is just facts for pre-meds who are now deciding between MD versus DO, what they should do. So I think sometimes I get surprised by controversy on videos where people get offended by things I don't think are offensive. Like, you know, making a video about gender surgery, like cool, I get that not everyone supports it, but to be offended about like and be so like worked up over how dare you promote this, like the whole point of Med School Insiders and any, most YouTube channels is either to entertain or to educate, and like we're focused on more education. So yeah, I'm going to educate you on all the specialties out there. So it's not really about, I think when people, actually, you know what, I'm gonna cut it there for the gender surgery thing, because I already talked a lot about that around minute 15 of this live stream. Is there any front wheel drive car that you really like? Dude, if I'm being honest, not really. I drove the Civic Type R limited edition recently, and I just posted a review of that on Jubbal and Cars, which is my car YouTube channel. And I had very high hopes because people say it's such a great, like it's the peak pinnacle front wheel drive and it's so much fun. And part of the issue with front wheel drive cars is that you're asking the front wheels to do a lot. So you can get oversteer, but it's not power oversteer. You have to like really toss the car to get the tail out. The steering feel is always compromised because you're driving power. So there's always going to be some torque steer and some feedback and some numbing of the feedback from the steering. I think, even all-wheel drive cars I don't find as fun because I love oversteer. I think power oversteer is like just so fun to play with and to dance with. Like when you're mid-corner and you can turn your car more or less with the throttle, that to me is like one of the best feelings. All right. Is work-life balance really that bad in medicine? I'm a non-traditional student, and I think a lot of people haven't worked very laborious jobs prior to med school or something. Obviously not everyone. That's a good point, Hunter. So is work-life balance really that bad in medicine? I'm going to say, yeah, man. I think compared to most other professions, I mean, there are other professions where you have pretty rough lifestyle, but I think few, like you can always think of examples where it's like, it could be very similar or more challenging in certain ways, but medicine really does ask a lot of you, and it depends on your specialty too, obviously. But there are certain specialties where having personal time is really, 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 really limited, and that includes sleep. And you do that year after year, it really weighs on you. So the lifestyle in medicine, especially for certain specialties, and definitely during residency for most specialties, because residency is it's not the rest of your career, but it is several years of the prime of your life. It's going to be draining. It's going to be really challenging. It's not a walk in the park by any means, especially if you want to be a good doctor. If you want to just like barely pass and barely slide through, and I do know some people who were able to put in a lot less work and have more balanced lives, but it wasn't like they weren't still working hard to some degree, right? Because to be a good doctor, you do need to work hard. Next up, any advice for dealing with imposter syndrome as a pre-med? Well, let me first finish this one. Imposter syndrome as a pre-med. You know what? I think imposter syndrome it can come from a lot of different sources, but one way to address it is very similar to how you build true self-confidence, which is that you do hard things. It's not about like, let me fake it till I make it, because that is one way that leads to imposter syndrome. Not the only way that leads to imposter syndrome, but if you apply yourself and you fail, and that's okay, but you get back up and you try again and you try something else, you're eventually going to have a few wins. And dealing with those failures and those losses, plus having a few wins here and there, that combined over time is going to get you past any imposter syndrome. So don't be afraid of hard things. Slimer, super chat for $9.99. Thank you so much for your support, man. Or woman. I'm not sure if it's a man or woman. Hi, Dr. Jubbal. I have a 3.4 GPA as a junior in college, and I'm considering a post-bacc in anatomy. What are your thoughts on post-bacc programs? Post-bacc programs can be very helpful for the right person if you have a lower GPA in particular. 3.4 overall, I'm guessing. Usually science GPA is a little bit lower. So yeah, that could be helpful. It's always hard for me to answer these questions with very limited information because it depends on other aspects of your application, right? So overall, we do have a good number of blog posts. I think we have like 3 blog posts about post-bacc check our blog. I think we have a handful of blog posts about Post-Bacc programs. But they can definitely be an asset to your application. There's different types of Post-Bacc programs and SMPs as well. So you want to be careful with which program you choose, because some are going to have advantages over others. Things like guaranteeing an interview as long as you meet certain criteria for like MCAT GPA at that school's associated medical school, things like that. Cool. Everyone is telling me that I'll never get into medical school because I'm Asian. Do you have any advice to work through this stigma constructively? Appreciate your help. Dude, Thomas, I love this question. Look, I am an overrepresented minority, meaning I am one of those people that needed to have it changes every year, but like I think 1 year was like nearly a 0.1 higher GPA, like a 3.7 versus 3.8, 0.1 higher GPA plus a higher MCAT to get into med school. And I got into a med school. I got a merit-based scholarship. All my tuition was covered. So like, as I say, statistics apply to populations, not to individuals. Like, don't let that discourage you. That is such nonsense. I hate these self-limiting beliefs because they help no one. They are just like, it's pure negativity. So yeah, it will be harder in terms of statistics. Like statistically, you need a higher GPA and a higher MCAT to get into med school as an Asian. I think that it is very unfortunate. I think that it is, I don't think that for some reason, society doesn't really care about that. I'm not sure why. It's unfair, but you can beat the odds. You can get in, man. You just got to apply yourself. Sean Anderson, Kevin Jubikes. Yes, I do cycle. Oh, guys. You have a car review channel now. What about a cycling channel? Sean Anderson, Kevin Drew Bikes. Yes, that's going to be my new cycling channel, Kevin Drew Bikes. Not to be confused with Kevin Drew Drives. Nick, what do you think about medical and dental schools with astronomically high tuitions, 500K plus? Is it still worth going to such expensive schools? We have a really, really good video coming out about medical school tuition that Eddie, our team member, worked on. He did a fantastic job with that video. And we are addressing the rising cost of medical school over the last couple decades and why it is and things like, is it worth it for a more expensive school? So essentially what it comes down to in this instance is probably not. You'd have to, like, if you only have one acceptance, then you need to decide whether you sign up and pay the fees of the really expensive school or you apply again next year. And most people are going to just choose the expensive school because applying is really hard. It's opportunity cost in terms of money, because that's one less year of being an attending physician. And when you're in that position where you don't have optionality, it's hard to choose, right? But then if you can become a stronger applicant and then choose between more programs that you've been accepted to, then you're in a position of power. Then you can even hopefully get some scholarship to lower your loan burden. Rajan Tumar says, hey, Dr. Jubbal, I'm currently a junior and I'm part of a lab at my institution. However, I haven't had any publications yet. We are working on a research course that I am very excited about. It is an extremely comprehensive research course, and we're spending a lot of time working on this. Research is complex. How do you get publications? I mean, this would be a 15-minute video in and of itself just to address that question. What I would say is try to get presentations at first. Try to get presentations and work on more than one project as well if you can to help get you third, fourth author or even later, lower down the author list on more projects. So that's my initial suggestion, but I would say wait for that research course because it's going to have a huge, comprehensive, thorough guide on how to just maximize your whole research experience, all aspects. Pierce, we got to know how you got that silky smooth skin, my boy. Dude, I am my skin is not silky smooth. I'm all inflamed. I got my pimples everywhere because I was sick, and I do have a skincare routine though that I've been tweaking, and most of the time I feel like my skin is not angry at me. So we will be working on a skincare routine video. What I learned about skincare, because I'm not a skincare expert by any means. A dermatologist would be. But I will be making a video about what I've learned about that and how I have got a better handle on my acne and such. What other questions we got? Do you think one can be a doc if one is kind of afraid of blood and needles, at least at first? Absolutely. There are, I think I talked about anatomy earlier to another question. Yeah, man, there are a lot of people who are afraid of blood and needles and cadavers and whatever, and like, these are all things that you can overcome. You are going to be uncomfortable at first. You push through the discomfort. I remember I once almost passed out. I should tell you guys about that. I think it happened twice. Was it once or twice? I can only remember once, but I feel like it happened a second time. Essentially, I was on a third year IM rotation, and the resident was doing a lumbar puncture on a patient, and the patient was in like agonizing pain. She was like crying and screaming, and there was something about the discomfort of the person, and like that made me very uncomfortable. And like I've seen lumbar, like seeing gross things or seeing like doesn't really bother me actually at all. But for some reason, having someone in extreme pain like that and like crying and screaming and whatever, and like doing it again and again, and like he like did it like 8 times. Like his technique was, I mean, I guess he's a resident, he's learning, but yeah, that like I could feel myself get lightheaded. I had to sit down because there was something about this patient's discomfort and her screaming that just got to me, to my core. And yeah, that I almost passed out, but like I think it happened a second time. I don't remember the second time, but I think it happened again, but it never happened after that. So a lot of these things you will, you know, push through the discomfort and learn to deal with it and get used to it. I mean, saying that, like getting used to like people being in discomfort is unfortunately sometimes people need to be uncomfortable in medicine when you are giving a therapy or a diagnostic test, et cetera, like a lumbar puncture as an example. But yeah, don't be afraid of needles and blood. You can overcome that for sure. Ronald Rahman Henkel asks, how can anyone deal with burnout? I'll say how I have dealt with burnout. I think for me, a lot of my burnout came from workaholic tendencies, spending too much time working, not enough time doing other things. And part of it was creating rules and boundaries for myself, which I know sounds ridiculous, like creating rules for yourself, but it works a lot. It like works for me for a lot of different things. About prioritizing social engagement and time with friends and family. So that was one thing that helped a lot. Another thing was, I guess, exercising regularly. That does a lot for your mental health and your mental state. Both cycling and weight training for me. And one thing that was, I was feeling burned out, and I tried to work too little. I was like, no, I'm not gonna work. I gotta focus on me, take care of myself. And paradoxically, it made it worse. I tried that for 2 weeks, and I was like, I'm not happy doing this. This is totally not me. And the next day, I created a schedule for myself. I created a schedule for myself like 2 weeks in, and then the next day I did it, and I didn't even follow my schedule exactly, but like by having that schedule and by having this purpose and by focusing again on crushing it with work, then I was like reinvigorated. So I think part of it is experimenting, like being true to yourself, making sure you have the sleep, exercise, nutrition, social support, those pillars handled. But then, yeah, beyond that, I guess, like, how would I have even known that making that schedule was going to help me? I think I was feeling like rudderless at the time. I don't know. I'm not really sure how I even came to that conclusion. But sometimes you got to experiment, sometimes you got to accept, sometimes you got to just like, you got to focus on those fundamentals. And that might be a good video for us to actually cover and for me to organize my thoughts a little bit better. So thanks for that question. All right, cool. We're all set. Back to the questions. What is your opinion on medicine in the future with growing distrust of medicine? I think a large part of growing distrust of medicine recently has been how COVID was handled. Oh my God, that was a poop show. Um, yeah, I think it'll come back. I think that right now we're probably at a trough in trust because of things like how we handled COVID. There was a lot of misinformation. Masks are effective. Masks are not effective. Oh, like what? We got to say them. Like it was a cluster. And I think that medicine will be fine. It'll recover just fine. And I think there's a lot of people, a lot of social media content creators who like people like Peter Attia as an example, who educate the public about a lot of current healthcare topics, and they do so in a way that I think is, if anything, helping reinforce trust and rebuild that trust in medicine again. So, and people like Mark Hyman, like there's a lot of good creators out there. So it's not like as we're moving more towards social media, I think that also is putting a face, like a personality beyond just like, you know, CDC guidelines and whatever. So I think I think medicine will be fine. Any gunners during medicine? Oh my God, yeah, dude. Yeah, man, there are. I had a gunner. Oh my God, it was my first rotation, I think, internal medicine. And this student would like read up on my patients, and when I'm presenting, like feel like blurt out things to show that she was so prepared. And dude, you're not fooling anyone. Like people can see right through that. The residents, the attendings. So I did well in that rotation. I honored the rotation. I'm not sure how she did, but like that kind of attitude, yeah, it's. I think karma has its way of setting the score. And there was also one, I'm gonna say, in college where this guy gave me the wrong answer. I ended up with an A. It was like chem lab. It was like I ended up doing fine, but like the fact that he gave me the wrong answer was just like so off-putting. I don't know why people do that. Like competition is good, but competition, the whole point of competition is that it brings out the best in you. It's not about like tearing people down. It's about when you have competition, you push yourself higher. Like if I'm at the racetrack and there's like a car that I want to, like the competition will bring out the best in my driving ability. It's not that I want to like hope that I don't want to hope that he messes up and crashes or whatever. I want to become a better person myself. So I just like, it's hard for me to understand that way of thinking. Obviously the reason being that they're thinking that if they bring me down, then they comparatively will be, you know, ranked higher on a curve or whatever. So what was your motivation for creating this channel and Med School Insiders? For this channel, it was more to like vlog my experiences. I created it during residency, actually, in September of my intern year. And then when I left residency, obviously I wasn't going to vlog my residency life anymore. So at that point, it kind of became my fun channel. So if you look at Med School Insiders, it's been very focused since the beginning. And that's why we grew so fast, like 200,000 subscribers in 11 months. And this channel has become, it was a lot more fun. Like I talk about random things. Like I have a video on me cycling 100 miles. I have a video on like almost crashing my car during my first ever track day, like random things. And that's not good for channel growth. But I told myself that I wanted this to be more of like a passion project where I'm having fun with it. And that I can just express my creativity and have a good time. Whereas Med School Insiders, when I started it, the goal was I want to educate people, because if I had this information back when I was a pre-med or whatever, this would have been so much easier. And that was like the first ever video I made, pre-med study strategies, what I wish I knew in college, was condensing everything I had learned about studying in a single video. First ever video on Med School Insiders. And then I remade that same video a few years later as an animated video. And that, like, those two videos I feel like are very good embodiments of what I wanted to accomplish with the channel, because it's like I just want to teach people what I wish I knew, because there's so much misinformation out there, man. Like I remember back then there were only like 2 or 3 other, you know, medical YouTubers, and some of the advice that was being given at the time, I was like, well, that's not my experience, and I don't agree with that, and I don't think it's actually helping to tell people to study in that way. I think that this is a better way to study, and yeah, that's why I created that channel. All right. Are you excited for F1 in Vegas from Jeffy Who? Yeah, man. I made a video about the F1 track on my Jubbal and Cars channel where I drive around the actual track layout with a buddy, and I'm so stoked. I am hoping I can get a room in one of the casinos where I can actually watch the race, but we'll see what happens. Anonymous, how do you deal with failure that is academic and overcome it? That's from Bill. Thank you, Bill, for the question. I think the main thing is trying to figure out why you got a bad result. Where was the disconnect? There were times when I was like too cocky going into a test, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't score as well as I thought I did when I got my final exam score." Right. So first is like you try to assess where the disconnect was. So oftentimes it's like, okay, I got these questions wrong. So actually, let me back up. You need to figure out why you didn't score well. So that means reviewing your test if possible. And usually they'll at least let you review it, even if they don't let you keep the test, to then figure out, okay, where was the disconnect? What was I getting wrong? Okay, I didn't understand this concept well enough, or I didn't apply this. I remember one test I did poorly on. I pulled an all-nighter. That's a very obvious reason why I didn't do well. I procrastinated and I didn't sleep before the test. Like, that was dumb. So I never did an all-nighter again. That was during my first quarter of college. So yeah, then after that, it's about creating a plan and implementing that plan so that you don't have that mistake happen again. Madeline 806, who is a member. Thank you for being a member, Madeline. Have you thought of doing a collaboration with Dr. Mike? Funny story. Dr. Mike and his agent reached out to me when I was in residency. This is back when MSI was around 200 or 300K subs. And I don't think I had even started this channel. Or maybe I had. I don't know. Maybe I just started it. But yeah, he had reached out and he wanted to do a collaboration because he was big on Instagram at the time, and he hadn't, or maybe he had just started his YouTube channel. It was like really, really small. And I think that, I forget what happened. I think we just got busy. I mean, I was in surgical residency trying to build two businesses. Like collaborations and sponsorships just were not a top priority. So yeah, doing one now. I mean, if there was a good topic or a good reason to, yeah, I would not be opposed at all. Hey Kev, current MD MBA student, what's the best way to stand up for yourself during rotations? This is a tough question because it depends on a lot of things. You don't ever want to be, you don't ever want to come across as like being whiny, complainy, or not being a team player. So oftentimes actions speak louder than words. And if you're slogging through it and you're putting in the time and things don't seem fair for various reasons, like you have to use your judgment to figure out when you want to bring attention to it versus when you just want to like put your head down and let your actions speak for themselves. Without knowing the details, it's hard to say, because there are instances where like if there's a clear violation and someone's like harassing you, like reporting it and not just putting your head down and working harder is going to be the answer. So it depends on standing up for yourself in what way. AMA asks, any future plans for Memm? Yeah, we have some exciting things. So we launched the Med School Insiders MCAT course, and we're adding a lot of things to the MCAT course. But one of the things is an integration with Memm, a really like robust integration where your cards is gonna sync with like I'll just say that there's a lot that's coming to make the Med School Insiders MCAT course plus Memm the strongest MCAT studying experience, and I'm pretty excited about that. Hey, do you mind, can we pull those shades down? Thanks. Nazar asks, do you think it's still worth pursuing medicine as a career? Yeah, I do. I think that a lot of people, again, there's a disconnect. People overhype medicine, and if 100 people want to become doctors, they're pre-med, then maybe only 70 would actually be happy, and the other 30 might want to choose something else. And that's why, on my channels, I try to teach you guys what is medicine actually like, what is it not, so you can decide for yourselves. And Day in the Life is one series, So You Want to Be is another series. We have some other videos too. But yeah, definitely still worth it. DNFam asks, name one thing you want to change in the world of medicine in the US. There are many things. I'll say one is accessibility to care, because getting a good doctor is challenging for a lot of people. And sometimes even when it's sometimes beyond just socioeconomically disadvantaged areas. So, Daniel O, do you have a girlfriend? No, I do not. The question always comes up. I'm taking applications though. Probably shouldn't have said that. More tea. All right, we'll do a couple more questions and then we'll call it a wrap. It's getting late here, and we are an hour and 10 minutes in. All right. Nick asks, what is the general consensus when it comes to visible tattoos, neck, hands, etc. in medicine? Are they common among newer doctors? Visible as in neck and hands, you are going to find in certain specialties attendings that have issues with that for sure. I know when I was in my training, I definitely came across, I don't have any tattoos, but for others, I know it has been an issue. Things are trending in the direction and things are changing such that it is becoming a smaller and smaller deal. But if you are a current med student and you're like, hey, should I get a neck tattoo? I mean, you have to decide for yourself, but in terms of getting into residency, probably also depends on your specialty. Some specialties are going to be a little bit more lax about that than others, but there's more downside than upside from a professional perspective. Nikolai Blasdell, do you really need thousands of hours of clinical experience? Could 100 or so do? A lot of channels emphasize it almost overgrades an MCAT. Your medical school application comes down to there's the checklist mentality and then there's the narrative-based mentality. The checklist mentality is what most people follow, where you just check the list, do X number of hours of this, Y number of hours of that, whatever. And the narrative is more a personal story-focused approach, which we find much more effective in terms of getting into medical school. So yeah, you're gonna have people that have maybe clinical experience is their weakness, but they have other strengths in their application, and the way that they tell their story and their narrative and why they want to become a doctor and how they arrived to this point is so compelling that they like crush it. They get into top universities, top programs. So no, there are few rules when it comes to application. There are guidelines, and yeah, you want to get clinical experience that is meaningful to you. Don't just check the boxes. Try to approach it through a narrative-based approach, and we talk about that on the Med School Insiders blog. And then obviously we obviously help people with their applications to create those effective narratives if they want one-on-one help too. How did you maintain med school with Crohn's? Were you fatigued all the time? Great question. Oh my God. Dude, in hindsight, I feel like I was just running on adrenaline a lot of the time. I was just sleep deprived and just like pushing hard. And so Amit Pandey, who you guys have seen in some of my early videos, one of my good friends from med school, I remember he'd be like, dude, you go do your infusions on a Sunday and like you study all day, you get exhausted because Remicade is exhausting. And then you come to the school Monday morning and then like you take the test and like you do well on the test. Like, what is going on, dude? Like that's some serious dedication. That's like, and it felt good when he said that, for sure. I felt appreciated and seen, but to me, it wasn't even like, there wasn't any other option. Like, I'm in med school, I want to do the best, I want to put myself in the best possible position, leave doors open for residency, whatever. And I just found ways to push myself. So that meant like, I got really obsessed with sleep optimization. So one of our popular videos on Med School Insiders is how to wake up early and not be miserable. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to sleep less, I need to maximize my sleep quality and get the best possible sleep. So I pushed myself pretty hard. I exercised with intensity. Like, intensity was the name of the game. I approached everything with intensity. I still kind of do to this day, although definitely turned down from like 10 to like 6. So just approaching things with intentionality and intensity is how I got through it. And surprisingly, it was very well controlled. Part of that was changing to a plant-based diet, which I realized was actually less about being plant-based and more about reducing dairy, because I had so much yogurt before, so much yogurt and milk, and reducing that. So now I'm no longer plant-based. I'm extremely well controlled, even better now than in med school. And I'm eating animal products, but I'm minimizing dairy. And so I think a lot of it is also experimenting with your health and then trying to figure out what works for you. So for me, it was like whole, unprocessed, healthy foods, sleep, exercise for stress management, because stress, from my experience, definitely exacerbates symptoms. And then when I felt tired, like, I don't even know how I didn't need caffeine. I just, again, kind of relied on that, like, adrenaline, or I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question though. Is it taboo to talk about scope creep? Yeah, if you're in a medical school or residency program, or even employed as an attending, you got to be careful. One of the things that I feel very fortunate about is that because of my position where I work for myself, I can say what a lot of people want to say, but are unable to do so, because a lot of people, if they were to talk about these things openly, they could get themselves fired or expelled or whatever. And you can actually see stories of this happening, which is pretty scary. Yeah, it's actually very scary that people can lose their jobs over stuff like this. But you want to be very careful when you're talking about scope creep, especially if it's on your personal Twitter, and your Twitter is like your real name, and like you can be tied to this university. Then I have seen bad things happen. What's your MBTI type? I am an ENTJ, which I think is called the Commander. Same as Gordon Ramsay and Steve Jobs, I think, are two famous people who have the same type. Some other people too, I forget. Yeah, ENTJ. Kevin, I also started cycling to school because of you. Since you're a cycling savant, I am not, dude. I am such a slow and out of shape cyclist. Do you think I should invest in a new road bike? I'm cycling about 1.5 hours to school every day on an old hybrid bike. I think the equipment you use is less important as long as it fits and it works well. So if you're not getting pain on your body because like it's the right size and it's adjusted properly, things like your saddle, fore, aft, and height and things like that, then you probably don't need an upgrade. If it's 1.5 hours is a lot of time though. So if you wanted a faster bike so that you could commute in like 1 hour and 10 minutes or something, then a road bike is definitely going to be faster. By the way, do you have a power charger? Because my computer's going to die.
I
do not. I'll be right back. But yeah, in terms of buying a bike, I would say, what's that saying? Don't buy upgrades, ride upgrades. Like just like put in the work, become more physically fit. I kept my old first road bike for like 2012 to 2021, so like 9 years. No, not 2012. Yeah, 2012. 9 years before I upgraded. And that was a very cheap road bike. And I have no regrets about keeping that for so long. I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to get my charger. I'm streamlining the process. Next time I'll know. All right, last 3 questions. Zygreen says, why do you drive a boba car when you don't drink boba? Because, Zygreen, if you are a true JDM boba boy, then you would know that tea without milk and without boba is actually the real OG way to be a true rice boy. From Malika, is your company also working with international students? Yes, we definitely work with a lot of international students. Last question from Successfully Bad. If you did medical school again, what would you do differently? That's a good question. The first thing that comes to mind is not being so hard on myself, being a little bit more chill. And as soon as I say that, I feel like that's aligned with my current values now. But then if I look back, it's like, well, I wanted to do plastic surgery. And if I didn't work hard and didn't apply myself and wasn't intense, then I wouldn't have mashed into plastics. I I wouldn't have the success I have with Med School Insiders because the quality, first of all, I wouldn't have a lot of the authority to say that, hey, I can teach you how to study for the MCAT because I did well in the MCAT or whatever, and things like that. I wouldn't, I also wouldn't have as strong of insights in terms of like, I think part of the reason Med School Insiders was successful was also because the advice generally worked, and I don't think I would have been able to give as good of advice unless I really worked hard, applied myself, and tried to figure those things out. So I don't know, man. I really enjoyed med school. There were times when it was stressful. Maybe, you know what? I would have started using Anki sooner. I only started using it at the end of my first year. I would have started using it at the beginning of my first year. There you go. That's what I would do differently. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining. Again, we're going to be doing more of these, especially for members only, where I'll be drinking whiskey, not tea, getting a little bit more inebriated, unfiltered for you all. So if you want to join and become a member, which I very much appreciate, then there's that join button below this video. We'll be doing these about once per month. I think they're a lot of fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed. So see you next time. See you in the next one.